Welcome back, welcome back. It's more than 2 years now since that violent and dangerous conflict between Georgia and Russia over the two breakaway regions of Abkhazia and South Ossetia. But time has done little to heal the wounds between the two countries. And I'm joined now from New York by the President of Georgia, Mikheil Saakashvili, to talk about Georgia's relations with Russia, its bid to join NATO, and those disputed territories. Mr. President, welcome. Mikheil, the papers have been full of the fact that, of course, your second term ends in 2013 and that you can't continue after that as president. But a lot of people are saying that you might well decide to continue as prime minister. Is that true?
First of all, I have to say that, we went through so many things for the last several years, through turmoil, embargoes, war, world economic crisis. And certainly I'm not concentrating on what will happen until after 2013. What we are doing in Georgia is concentrate on what will happen before. And what will happen before is that I think we'll make Georgia irreversibly successful economically. We'll make political system, entrenched political system, fully democratic and complying with European standards. And by 2013 there will be no single center of power in Georgia, because the way Parliament is changing the Constitution is that the President will stay powerful and I will not be able to run for President. Parliament will control fully the government, and prime ministers might change much more often than the president, because that's how the political system will be structured. And as I said, my main focus, what will happen until then, all our programs in until then, although I'll be very happy if this group of reformers that I brought to power, the ideology of reforms that made Georgia successful, stays in place, and I'll do my best to keep it there. How I can help them to keep it, that's I'll decide it when the time approaches. But I don't think it's focused on my future positions in any way. I have great plans for afterlife as well.
Mr. Medvedev said the other day, quote, "As soon as Georgia gets a new leader, we will have every opportunity to restore ties." Do you think this is true? Or do you think that ties will never be restored, whoever's in charge of Georgia?
Well, Mr. Medvedev is on his way out. That's at least the impression I've got. Vladimir Putin is certainly braced to come back. And all the wishful thinking connected with, liberal Medvedev versus bad guy Putin and, the internal struggle, I think will be over with that change. And, the point here, but the question is deeper than that. By saying we will never deal with this government of Georgia, they basically are saying we will never deal with democratically elected government of Georgia. That's to say, with the people of Georgia. Now, this is the country that occupies 20% of my country's sovereign territory. This is and that it's a fact. It's qualified as illegal occupation by main responsible actors of international relations. It's a country that allows, that basically keeps the situation, which keeps away from their own houses 500,000 refugees and displaced persons of all ethnic groups, basically keeping these territories empty, building up weapons there. And after all of that, we, the occupied country, will say we will talk to occupiers without preconditions, without any, any special provisions, any place they want to. We are ready to have serious negotiations on main subjects. And they say, no, wait a minute, we'll never talk to these guys back there. Well, it doesn't sound logical, and it really tells you lots of things about what really happened in Georgia and what's happening back there in Moscow.
When you were elected as president in 2004, you announced your plan for Georgia to join NATO. Now, are you still optimistic that Georgia will join NATO during your presidency, so by 2013?
Well, we never made any deadlines, and you should realize we're a small country in the middle of very complicated geopolitical region. We are strategically an important country, although there are lots of things at stake and lots of political factors at play. And of course, we didn't change our mind. But on the other hand, we are developing relations with all the other countries in the region. We are developing relations with, with the countries to the south, with our other former Soviet countries like Ukraine, like Central Asia, Caspian, Turkey, and the European Union. Indeed, we started association agreement talks with the European Union. We are starting the free trade agreement. We signed strategic relations treaty with the United States. So, we are just not fixated only on one goal. There are many other things. And while, of course, we never gave up our aspirations. We want to be members of serious club. We want to be, we want to have secure future, and it's a natural right and aspiration of especially any small people and the democratic nations.
You hope, of course, to regain the territories of South Ossetia and Abkhazia, but with the strengthening of Russian troops in the area, have you put that to one side, or do you still have a lingering hope?
The situation we have now is qualified as illegal occupation. I don't believe Russians can prevail as illegal occupants of anything. The Soviet Union couldn't keep illegally occupied areas. I don't think present Russian Federation is in any situation, with all the internal trouble and problem, with huge, basically civil war in Northern Caucasus, with oil production declining very rapidly, with the whole range of other social issues, corruption, corruption that is beyond any limits. You had serious Russian policymakers publicly on record saying we should imitate Georgia, which they qualify as enemy state, in terms of reforms and changes.
Mr. Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, has been saying recently that it's important that Russia reached out to the rest of the world and that it was important that mutual suspicions were abolished and that your two countries got closer, as it were. Is there any truth in that, or is it just a pose?
Well, I think this is a symptom of what's really happening in Russia. And what's really happening in Russia is that they believe that without some kind of softening language, and they cannot forever bark at the moon at least with Western powers and with China, the Russia is in deep trouble because they have all this structural problem. But right now the way they say, okay, we'll be softer with Poles, with Europeans, with Americans. We'll try to get closer to China, but we'll grab the rest of the former Soviet space. We'll grab Georgia. That's to say, if you grab Georgia, you'll grab the rest of Central Asia and Caspian with all the energy resources and strategic advantages. You will grab Belarus and control Ukraine. And then again, with new Trump in our pocket, we'll go back and start maybe new round of pressure on other countries.
One of your critics said the other day, when Misha took power in 2004, he was a Democrat, but he's becoming more and more of a despot. Do you think that's fair?
Well, I've been hearing that since day one when I was in government. What Georgia has undeniably very vibrant civil society and free media. We just held elections that were held by outside world as free and fair, and quite a rare thing in our part of the world. In the elections where even mainstream opposition groups congratulated the winners and basically said that it was a meaningful progress. So we are not there yet. We have a long way to go, but I'm very proud that I took over of a failed, crippled nation with huge corruption, huge crime rate, and we turned with where government couldn't perform basic functions. 80% of the time in the winter people would not get electricity, and now we have a country that exports energy, the country that is totally energy self-sufficient, that has a very rapidly growing economy, and that has uniquely vibrant, open, democratic system in this part of the world.
You mentioned last time, Misha, last time we spoke, that there were pharmacists in the Kremlin preparing poisons for people not a million miles away from yourself. Is that still the place? I mean, if you were going to dinner in the Kremlin, would you take a food taster with you?
Well, I doubt I'll be invited anytime soon for a dinner with the Kremlin. I think they're right now busy with cooking poison for each other, as I hear from different media. Although, of course, I'm sure we are still, on their menu, and they haven't given up on basically taking over of Georgia. But I know I've never been obsessive about it. I believe that ultimately truth will prevail, and I don't think in any case. Whatever happens to me personally, or whatever happens, around, whatever happens individually, that, we have, it's not about me, it's a political class, the whole mentality that has changed. We have the government that is totally non-Soviet. We have lots of young people around me, all the time fresh blood. You know, the country has changed beyond recognition, and that's exactly the new standard for post-Soviet space. And there is no way you can poison all of them or kill all of them or scare all of them. Ultimately, these kind of people are going to prevail and have their way.
Misha, thank you so much for being with us. Mikheil Saakashvili there. After the break, pop star turned politician, turned pop star again, Wyclef Jean.